Welcome to the Wall Street Crossover Show, brought to you by Tip TV in conjunction with our sponsors, Admiral Markets. It gives me great pleasure to welcome Mr. Darren Sinden, market commentator at Admiral Markets. Very good afternoon to you, young Darren. In terms of the weekend's press, lots of speculation, I thought, whether it was political, geopolitical, M&A in the FTSE 100, interest rates. I can't remember a more unclear path.
No, it's, well, it's good, I suppose, that there's been, there's lots to keep us thinking about as far as the press is concerned. But it's odd that that there are so many sort of contradictory signals, if you will, about what's going on in wider economies and the markets as a whole. It's difficult to work out exactly what the path is. The M&A stories, of course, keep coming thick and fast, and that's probably sort of taking the lead, as it were, at the moment.
But you would assume if there's lots of M&A activity, that the markets would be trading higher where they've been lurching lower.
Depends, doesn't it, really, about the types of deals that are being done and premiums, if any, are being paid. If you look at the Vodafone Liberty Media speculation, there's a deal that's worth perhaps in total a couple of $100 billion, and yet may not come at a premium, may involve only subsets of assets, maybe a like-for-like merger of two enterprises, not necessarily a brilliant deal for shareholders, but maybe a better deal for the businesses themselves.
Understood. Okay, but if you're watching for the first time, we go through a number of slides. Let's go to the first slide. Basically, data released during the European session to date. What's caught your eye this morning, Darren?
To be fair, Nick, it's a bit thin on the ground in terms of economic data this week. We had some bits and pieces in Europe, but it's not really what you'd call a full calendar this week at all. So German industrial production for April, this is the month-on-month number, up by 0.9% versus the prior read of 0.4. So no great
improvement,
but an improvement nonetheless. And then the other sort of major piece of data, the Sentex, the Eurozone Investor Confidence Index. The Sentex are a company who tend to poll through social media, and
do we believe the pollsters in this day and age?
Well, I don't know. I mean, this is an early read, really. Obviously, we're only literally finishing the first week of June, and this number's come out. But 17.1, the investor confidence read on this measure versus 18.7 the forecast and 19.6 the prior read. I guess it's not surprising that maybe investor confidence will be dented given what's gone on in European equity markets over the last 3 or 4 weeks. So it's down again. And then I suppose the other major piece of news out of Europe, or at least the periphery of Europe, the Turkish election results, and the ruling AKP party, led by Mr. Erdogan, has unexpectedly lost its majority, so it stays in power if it can form a coalition. That's not what the market was expecting, and Turkish equities and the Turkish lira have plunged. I don't think that's too strong a word. And then perhaps the other major news, and that was out on Sunday, to be fair, but was reiterated this morning, that the twin CEOs, I should say, at Deutsche Bank have resigned. Good for the stock, because that was up around 7%. But
I never like to see a stock rally when somebody resigns.
No, especially when it's the people that run the business. Read what you're willing to that, but I thought it was worth mentioning just in case people hadn't seen the story.
Understood. Okay, so let's turn our attention to the FTSE movers this morning.
Okay, well, you referenced the M&A stories in the press at the weekend. Amongst them was a mention for Diageo, DGE, the ticker in London. They're up 7.24%, around £18.80, and talk is that Brazil's 3G Capital are rumoured to be interested. The story broke in the Brazilian press and was picked up by Bloomberg. So
the ADRs were much higher Friday night.
They were, absolutely, yeah, but when that sort of hit the wires late. And then the miners here in London, Antofagasta, Glencore, Anglo-American and their peers, all down by at least 1%, and that was on some negative Chinese trade data, very weak on exports and imports. Not good numbers at all out of China, and probably, until there's any change in that, you'll probably see the miners continue to weaken, I would think.
Understood. Let's turn our attention to M&A rumours in Europe today.
Okay, so we're back on to the Diageo story. It is the pick of the bunch of the M&A story today, although there was also talk of Deutsche Telekom for BT, and Shire Pharmaceutical in the UK is supposedly looking at Actelion. Anyway, back to the Diageo story. Tickers are DGELN and DEO US. As I say, in the sights of Brazil's Jorge Paulo Lemann. I hope I pronounced that
beautifully
correctly.
Pronounced.
Well, I'll try my best. He's one of the movers behind a vehicle called 3G Capital. Just to give some background, it's him and about 4 other very rich individuals. They are movers and shakers in the world of consumer brands, fast-moving consumer goods. For instance, they were behind the merger of Burger King and Tim Hortons. Funnily enough, Burger King was, of course, sold by Diageo back in 2002, but this was a deal that was done in the last year. They also have worked in the past with Warren Buffett, and for instance here on the merger with Kraft and Heinz. And I haven't put it up there because I was running out of room, but these guys also were prime movers in the deals between Anheuser-Busch and Ambev. And they injected the Latin American assets into that combined group. So they know their onions in this space. Jefferies have said for 3G Capital to bid for Diageo outright in a leveraged buyout would be a stretch for their balance sheet. But as we can see, they work with Mr. Buffett, and it's quite likely that they could form a consortium to do this deal. I've flagged here Brown-Forman, BF-B and BF-A, 2 classes of shares there in the States. They own Jack Daniel's, Southern Comfort and Finlandia, so it's the other major US listed drinks player. I think it's interesting that their stock was lower on Friday. It didn't rally at all. You would have thought perhaps if there was going to be a big bid in the sector, then that should
the whole lot,
rise. Tide should lift all ships. Perhaps it's because the stock was already up 18% year to date versus Diageo's sort of 4.5% rise prior to the bid story. But it could also be because of this. 3G is known for buying consumer brands, and then to apply ruthless cost cutting. So I suspect that some Diageo brands and operations will be up for sale if the deal proceeds. Some of those might head Brown-Forman's way, and perhaps people are thinking forward and maybe expecting them to maybe raise a bit of money to perhaps buy some of the
assets that become available.
Exactly. So watch that sector, because if it comes to fruition, everyone will be jockeying for position again.
Understood. Okay, so let's have a look at the US data points to keep an eye on today.
Well, there are none.
Wow.
No, it's data of no.
It's not very exciting.
In a slow week, no. And it is a slow week. Weekly jobless claims and retail sales on Thursday are principally the highlights for the week. So we'll have to find some other things to talk about on Tuesday and Wednesday. But I've just flagged a couple of other major things that are going on in the States today. The start of a week-long Apple Developer Conference. Obviously, Apple is as big as some countries in terms of its turnover and
GDP and everything else, yeah.
So what they say does make a difference. There's no secret that they're probably going to relaunch their music service today. We're also expected to hear about updates to their operating systems, and perhaps most interestingly, we'll get some further feedback about how the watches sales are going and what people are using it for and what the future looks like for that. And then in terms of other important macro political things, the G7 meeting continues in southern Germany. Obviously, a full agenda there: Ukraine, Greece, ISIS, the non-stop stream of immigrants fleeing North Africa. Plenty for the G7, and on top of that, of course, the global economy.
Well, they had time to have sausages and beer for breakfast. I don't know if they misquoted the fact that it was breakfast, but there you go. Understood. Okay, so let's move on to the pre-market movers and some chart points for you.
Okay, well, I've just picked out one stock today as far as pre-market movers. The only one that really caught my eye. Umbrella Inc. is the name of the stock. AMBA. The ticker up 2.95%. These guys are a manufacturer of specialist chipsets that have various clearly defined applications. One area, though, that they think that they can get some further traction is the idea of their equipment getting into drones and the whole drone thing taking off, sorry, no pun intended, and becoming even more popular than it is. So the market seems to be getting behind that idea. They're up 2.95% pre-market. It's fair to say, though, that they have doubled over the last year already. So, but nonetheless, there's a bit of momentum there. And in terms of levels to watch today, as far as European equities are concerned, all to the downside. So we're a bit lower. 67.67 for FTSE I put in here, and 68.57 on the upside. For the DAX, a bit of round number psychology here. 11,100 I think is the level to watch there on the downside. 11,225 I've gone for on the upside. S&P, we'll look at 2088 on the downside and 2100 to the upside. For the Dow, 17,826 to the downside and 17,968 to the upside. And then currencies, stronger dollar basically is the flavour again. So euros weakened marginally to 110.70 now on the downside, and 111.75 on the upside. Quite a wide range there, but it needs to find its feet again to tell us what's happening next. Aussie dollar, US dollar, weaker again. The Aussie 75.98 now, the downside level to watch in that, and 76.53 the upside level I'm keeping my eye on. Dollar yen, yes, the yen continues to weaken, although it hasn't sort of collapsed, but 124.96 now on the downside, and 125.40, which I think is key, that we're pushing on above 125, or have done. Cable, sterling weakness again, 152.17 now, the downside, plays 152.80 on the upside.
Understood. These markets are clearly falling back a smidge, aren't they?
They are, yeah.
Okay, Darren Sinden, market commentator, Admiral Markets, thank you for your time. That wraps up the Wall Street crossover show. We'll be back the same time tomorrow, 1 p.m. Have a good day. Thank you.